and some of the surrounding streets. I often work with our crew, who are a great bunch. They're hard-working, but also up for a laugh, and part of what makes me get out of bed each day. It's really quiet first thing, but there's always a lot to clean. Sometimes it's a bit of a mess, and there's rubbish scattered around. I clean the footpath, the street furniture, the bins, and remove graffiti off public buildings. I like it. It keeps me busy. It feels pretty satisfying to know that at the end of each day I've made Sydney Road look a little better for everyone who lives, works and visits here. Cleaner streets make it a nicer place to shop too, and that helps our local traders. And as everyone starts their day and the shops open, I get to meet some lovely community members and their dogs. Everyone knows Sydney Road is legendary. We should all show it some love.
Did you know that Merri-bek is home to a diverse community where more than 95 languages are spoken? That's why we offer information on council services in your language. If you've received a rates notice that you don't understand, would like to request a new bin, or have another question for council, we can help. We have free in-person and phone interpreters who can help you communicate with staff at council in your language. To request an interpreter, simply call 92401111 and ask one of our customer service staff to organize one for you. You can also request an interpreter at one of our customer service centres, libraries or maternal and child health centres. At Merri-bek, we're proud of our diverse community and we want to make sure everyone can access our services. For more information about our language services, please visit our website.
Wheel Sisters came about after some women in Fawkner approached us, wanting to learn to ride bikes and also find other women from their own community to ride with, including women who might ride in hijab or an abaya. One of the things that never gets old when you teach people to ride bikes is the sheer thrill they get when they realise they can do it.
The really special thing about teaching both the women in Fawkner and the women here is just the cultural barriers that they face every day, and coming from a place where they never thought they'd ever be able to ride a bike. A lot of them do reflect that it's been their lifelong dream to ride a bike, but they never thought they'd be able to do it. So it's just that extra level of being able to gift that to somebody.
I got really excited when I heard about this program. I'm almost 40 and I've never ridden a bike. I tried when I was little. Yeah, I still can't believe that I can ride, and yeah, it's been a dream and I'm so glad that it came true.
It was excellent, very special experience for me because it was my childhood wish to learn how to ride a bike.
Yeah, my experience was great because I've never ridden the bike before, so it was like...
Good evening, councillors, members of the gallery and to our viewers live streaming tonight's meeting. My name is Councillor Helen Politis and I'm the Deputy Mayor of Merri-bek City Council and the chairperson for tonight's council meeting for planning and related matters. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's meeting. We're meeting on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people and we wish to acknowledge them as the traditional custodians of this land and waterways, and would also like to pay our respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, as well as to all First Nations communities who significantly contribute to the life of this city. This council meeting is being recorded and web streamed live to council's website and YouTube. This recording will also be available as video on demand. Attendees are advised that they will be recorded during the meeting. A reminder that as councillors, we will act in accordance with the Councillor Code of Conduct, which will support the principles of leadership and good governance that secures public confidence in the office of councillor. In the event of an emergency or disruption, we may be required to take action to ensure the safety of attendees. For members of the gallery and councillors attending in person, please follow the directions issued by council staff and security officers. Thank you for your understanding and cooperation. This evening, the councillors and officers that we have in attendance, who I'd like to introduce tonight, are Councillor Nat Abood. Hello. Councillor Sue Bolton. Councillor Dr. Jay Iwasaki.
Hello, everyone.
Councillor Chris Miles.
Evening.
Councillor Alice Svensson.
Evening.
Councillor Katarine Theodosius.
Hi, everyone.
And joining us online, we have Councillor Oscar Yildiz.
Good evening.
And Councillor Liz Irving. Okay, all right. Councillor Liz Irving will be joining us shortly. I'll also introduce Phil Priest, Group Manager, City Development, and members of the Urban Planning team.
Good evening.
Next item on the agenda is apologies. We have an apology from Councillor Adam Pulford, who is on an approved leave of absence. Are there any other apologies from councillors for tonight's meeting? Yes, Councillor Mayor Helen Davidson, who is currently on business in Canberra this evening, is also an apology. Thank you. I'll now move on to disclosures of conflict of interest. Councillors, are there any conflicts of interest to declare? Nope. So there are no conflict of interest. We'll now move on to the confirmation of the minutes of the previous meetings. Councillors, could I please have a motion for the confirmation of the minutes of council meeting for planning and related matters held on the 23rd of July 2025? Councillor Miles, seconder Councillor Theodosius. All those in favour? And I declare the minutes carried. Before we move on to the reports for consideration, I will outline how this council meeting for planning and related matters will run this evening. For the item in relation to a planning permit application, the relevant planner will introduce the report and the officer's recommendation. I'll then give objectors and supporters the opportunity to make their submission. After this time, the applicant will be given the opportunity to speak. If you are making a submission, please clearly state your name for the record. You're requested to present viewpoints clearly and concisely on why you oppose or support the planning application. Please do not repeat what earlier speakers have said and keep the discussion focused on relevant issues and points not previously raised. If you are opposed to the planning application, would you please inform the meeting of why you are opposed and suggest an alternative approach which would satisfy your concern? Please use this as an opportunity to focus on your concerns rather than matters of detail in the officer's report. And please note that there is a limit of 3 minutes for each speaker and the permit applicant, but as chairperson, I reserve the right to increase or reduce the time available to any speaker. So now we come to the presentation of reports, and we have two reports this evening. And the first report is the City Development Activity Report for the June quarter. I'll ask again, does any councillor have a conflict of interest to disclose? No? If there are no conflicts to disclose, we don't have any speakers listed to speak to this report. Are there any other people in attendance in the gallery tonight who wish to address council on this report? No. If no one wishes to speak, council, could I please have a mover to a motion for this report? Councillor Miles, and a seconder, Councillor Iwasaki. Does the mover wish to speak?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Does the seconder wish to speak?
No, that's all right.
Councillors, are there any speakers against the motion? No speakers in favour of the motion. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to the motion? Well then, if there's no debate or speakers, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? And I declare that carried. The next item we have this evening, item 5.2, is 253 to 259 Brunswick Road, Brunswick, planning permit application MPS / 2024/528. Does any councillor have a conflict of interest to disclose? Nope. I'll then ask Aileen Chin, Principal Urban Planner, to present the report. Thank you, Aileen.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Good evening, councillors and gallery. This planning application relates to the site at 253 to 259 Brunswick Road in Brunswick. It is for the use of land for student accommodation, buildings and works associated with the construction of a 5-storey addition above the existing heritage building, as well as a reduction in car parking requirements. The site has a frontage on Brunswick Road to the south of 50 metres and Black Street to the east of 14 metres. The site has an irregular L shape with a total area of just over 1,000 square metres. It is currently occupied by a single-storey brick building. The building is on the State Heritage Register. It is currently vacant and has been previously used as a tyre and mechanical service centre. The surrounding area is undergoing substantial change given its designation within the Brunswick Activity Centre. Building heights generally range from 1 to 10 stories within proximity to the site. The site is within the Commercial 1 zone, the Design and Development Overlay, Schedule 18, which applies to the Sydney Road and Upfield Corridor, the Parking Overlay, Environmental Audit Overlay, and lastly the Heritage Overlay, Schedule 14, which applies to the Cable Tram Engine House. As this is a state heritage listing, Heritage Victoria are the responsible authority for heritage-related matters. As mentioned, the site is within the Brunswick Activity Centre. DDO 18 includes discretionary controls requiring a maximum building height of 25 metres or 7 to 8 stories, street wall height of 20 metres to Brunswick Road, which is 6 to 7 stories, and 10 metres to Black Street, equivalent to 3 stories. The upper level setback is required of 5 metres and a 45-degree line taken from the opposite street boundary, which is also referred to as the 1-to-1 ratio. The proposal is for a 7-story student accommodation building with a maximum building height of 22.7 meters, excluding the service equipment. There are a total of 111 student accommodation rooms. This comprises a breakdown of 99 one-bedroom, 10 two-bedroom, and 2 Disability Discrimination Act compliant rooms. There is also a food and drink premises, or a cafe, of 114 square meters on the ground floor. There are internal communal areas of 793 square meters. This includes lounge, dining, laundry, library, games room, and gymnasium. There is further outdoor communal open space areas of 269 square meters located on the ground floor and level 3. No car parking is provided on the site, and 74 bicycle spaces are provided. We would like to raise 2 corrections to the published agenda. On page 25 of your agenda, the proposal section incorrectly refers to the construction of a 6-story building. This should state 7 stories. On page 35 of the agenda, there is an image, figure 2, which has been included as part of considering the shadow impacts. To assist with understanding this image, officers overlaid a color-coded 2 p.m., 2:30 p.m., and 3 p.m. line on the shadows. However, when the image was published into the agenda, this resulted in a slight shift of the lines of the alignment. The application has been advertised to the public in the form of 2 signs on Brunswick Road and Black Street, as well as direct mail to neighbouring properties. 22 objections have been received, including 1 petition with 38 signatories. The main issues raised within objections are the overall building bulk and scale, the car parking reduction and traffic impacts, loading and waste collection, and internal amenity, along with various other issues. A planning information and discussion meeting was held on the 1st of July this year. Following this meeting, the applicant has agreed to a number of conditions. This requires waste collection to be undertaken from Brunswick Road, subject to support from the relevant road authority, the collection of waste outside of peak hour times, the provision of an operational management plan that restricts the hours of use for the outdoor common areas, and the submission of a construction management plan under the general local laws. The key considerations within the report are building height, street wall height, upper level setbacks, and car parking. It is recommended that a notice of decision to grant a planning permit be issued subject to key conditions requiring a reduction in the street wall height on Brunswick Road, the provision of upper level setbacks on Brunswick Road, the provision of 121 resident bicycle parking spaces, and further, that Council also determine that the 0 on-site car parking spaces for student accommodation has been provided to the satisfaction of the responsible authority. Thank you.
Sorry. We have an objector who's indicated they wish to speak. Is Elizabeth Jackson with us this evening? Hi, Elizabeth.
This cable tram engine house is an important historic building. It's one of only about 20 in Brunswick that's on the Victorian Heritage Register, and as such it really is special. Originally it was the cable tram engine house, and what that was, it had an enormous steam engine inside with a big wheel, and that in turn pulled a cable which stretched all the way to Flinders Street and would pull the trams all the way along Elizabeth Street and Royal Parade to that point. There was another one at Moreland Road, and that would pull the trams along the Sydney Road to their destination. So it's very significant in terms of Merri-bek history and transport history in Victoria. So now we have this proposal for it, which puts an enormous apartment building right on top of it with what appears to be very little setback. It's an awful example of facadism, which heritage experts all abhor, and would prefer that it was redesigned so that the tower was further back and to the side so that the integrity of the original building was maintained. The developers were required to get a permit from Heritage Victoria because it's a listed building, and a couple of weeks ago, to the surprise of everyone, Heritage Victoria granted a permit. For them, what for them is very rapid turnaround. This just isn't my opinion. I've spoken to Ray Tonkin, who used to be the head of Heritage Victoria, and he was astonished and appalled that such a building had been approved so quickly. One can only conclude that Heritage Victoria doesn't value industrial buildings. But here in Merri-bek, I think we should, because they're a very important part of our history. So, now it's come to Merri-bek Council, and it appears the Planning Department has used the approval of the Heritage Victoria to wash their hands of considering any heritage considerations. They've said as much in their report. So I'm very disappointed about this. And I would urge Council to reconsider and try and get a better setback for this building so that we're able to see the building, that it doesn't become just a podium for a very ugly apartment building. I mean, of course, I appreciate the need for student housing, but I'm not sure that students want to live in apartments the size of a hotel room, which is what is proposed. However, I think we could have a better design which preserves the heritage of the building while providing accommodation. I think it is certainly possible to combine heritage protection with providing housing for people. And you don't need to look far to see an example. Right next door is the Sarah Sands Hotel, where the developer preserved all of the original Gold Rush Hotel and built the apartment tower further back so that it doesn't impinge on the hotel itself. So that's all I have to say, really. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Any questions for Elizabeth? Yes, Councillor Bolton.
That's a good question. I don't know if you got a chance to go to the PID meeting where objectors and developers and...
No, I was in London that day,
Okay.
the Paddington Bear experience with my grandson.
Okay, well, that's obviously great. But I'm wondering if this, what you're putting forward has been raised with the developer or the council up till now.
Well, only in my written objection that I put in, yes. Mm. I was also surprised that this recommendation was made without any discussion with a heritage consultant. I would have thought that any application for a heritage listed building of this magnitude would be discussed with Council's heritage consultant, which they certainly used to have, yeah.
Any other questions for Elizabeth? Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do we have anyone else who wishes to speak? Okay. So we've got a couple of supporters. Is there anyone who... Is there anybody who is speaking in opposition? No. Do we have Asanka Epa? Thank you, Asanka. Hi, when you're ready.
I'll be quick. I'd like to note that this application proposes adding 111 new dwellings. This means over 100 households can live in a well-served area, close to shops, parks, the city, and every type of amenity imaginable. If this doesn't get built, those households will not disappear into thin air. They will simply be forced somewhere else into housing that does not suit their needs as well. So I urge Council to consider the people who this development would affect the most, the future residents. I note that officers recommend approval. I also note that it complies with height limits, external and internal amenity requirements, and subject to officers' conditions built form. This is a pretty unambiguous case where housing should be approved on its merits. At a time when planning regulation and allowing more housing is at the forefront of policy discussion in Victoria, Council should be a leader in this space and allow more housing where people want to live. The biggest impact this would have by far is on the 100 extra households who would get to benefit from living here. Fears of more housing over an old building are trivial in comparison. I urge Council to support this application. Thanks.
Thank you, Asanka. We have Nick Dolby, and there's one other person who wishes to speak. So, Nick, come on up. And Nick, you're speaking in support?
Yes, my name's Nick Dolby, archaeologist, long-time resident of Brunswick. I used to live in Brunswick Road, just west of this site. This is one of, for me personally, this is one of the most significant sites, buildings in Brunswick. It is the former cable tram engine house. And every time I go past it with somebody else, I say to them, look, that used to be a cable tram engine house. And there used to be a cable that went from there to Royal Parade, and then down Royal Parade, and then down Elizabeth Street to Flinders Street, and then back again. So it went twice. And cable trams used to grab onto it and be pulled along. So it represents engineering, but also history of the Melbourne tram network. Brunswick's had a bit of that. In fact, I know that there used to be horse-drawn trams along Union Street, Brunswick. There's no remains of them or anything, but there you go. There was a multitude of trams. And then in the 20s and 30s, we started shifting to an electric tram network, which is what we have now. So yes, I think this building is very significant. And in my ideal world, in my head, there will be money. There will be money from the federal government, the state government, local government, public, private sector individuals, etc., to make this the best tramways museum in Melbourne, in Victoria. Yes, in my head, that would be ideal. But unfortunately, it's not going to happen. And apologies to former Mayor Liz Jackson, but I think that this development proposal as it is now, with tweaking, is a sympathetic response to the site. I think the retention of at least 5 metres or so of the surrounding building, I think the retention of the internal roof spaces and so on, is a sympathetic treatment of this important building. The student housing is not meant to be luxury apartments. It is supposed to be small, tight things for temporary 2-3 year use, etc. I do accept, in fact, I applaud the zero on-site car parking spaces, considering that there is a tram, a train and a bus running next to this building. I also approve the overshadowing of Black Street and sometimes of Brunswick Road, because personally as a pedestrian, I'm more concerned about those really hot 40-degree days when I'm walking along the footpath and want a bit of shade than I am for the comparative lack of shade in winter when I'm already rugged up and wearing appropriate footwear and so on. So overall, on the balance of this, I have to give it my support. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Nick, for your submission. And we have one other speaker. Would you like to come forward, sir? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My colleagues just got some hard copy handouts.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. When you're ready, can you please state your name?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors. My name's Vaughan Connor and I'm a director at Contour Consultants, and we represent Benson's Property Group, who have a long history of development in Merri-bek. What's before council tonight is a purpose-built student accommodation building, and the merits of the proposal are set out in the officer's report. And we generally support the recommendation, save for condition 1A, and I'll come back to that. What is not before council is the background to the voluntary amendment we made, and more specifically that the original proposal as lodged with council and Heritage Victoria was the subject of an independent design review process within the framework of the Office of the Victorian Government Architect. Now, this OVGA process is becoming increasingly common for such projects where concurrent planning and heritage permits are sought. And just on that, and in relation to the heritage comments made by one of the speakers, heritage is not before the council tonight because the heritage permit has been issued by Heritage Victoria. In short, this independent review process led to the current design being considered by council tonight, and importantly, as I've just said, the heritage permit has been granted, and it's been granted on the basis of this proposal without change. And again, I'll come back to the condition 1A. Now, turning to condition 1A, it seeks a reduction in the street wall height and overshadowing. Firstly, such a change would result in the planning permit being inconsistent with the heritage permit. Secondly, it's inconsistent with the independent advice received by the Office of Victorian Government Architect. And thirdly, the extent of change required by that condition would make the project unviable, and all of the outcomes, including the heritage outcome for this site, is at risk. Now, turning to the provisions of the DDO related to street wall and overshadowing, the first thing we have to acknowledge is that they are discretionary. There is the ability for this council, as a decision maker, to vary those preferred provisions. It is also necessary to look at, in relation to overshadowing this, is to look at the footpath area in question. And in the package, where there's existing conditions, the original proposal, new proposal, and a whole range of information, there are diagrams which show the proposed shadow at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 noon and 1 o'clock at the equinox. Now, firstly, I have to say this is residentially zoned land opposite, covered by a heritage overlay, and it's unlikely to change that much. It's not commercially zoned land, it's not Sydney Road with cafes, it's a transitional space, and it's a transitional space which is compromised by bus shelters, bike hoops, trees, light poles, signage and garbage bins. It's for these reasons that we have discretionary control, so you can properly understand and interrogate the conditions when it comes to overshadowing considerations like this. We also need to look at the extent of overshadowing, which is a result of the proposal. And it's at 10 a.m. when it's at worst case, if you look at the 10 to 2 test. And people, because of the street furniture, as I've referred to, and trees and everything, you have to walk on the inboard side of the footpath adjacent to the fence line. And what you can see in those diagrams, and apologies I couldn't put it on the screen, but you can see you are still walking in sunshine. The lower part of your body's in shade, but as you're walking through that space, you are in sunshine. At 11 a.m, the shadow is completely gone off that walking path, and then by 12 o'clock, effectively, it's off. So the extent of overshadowing is minimal, and again, I'll refer back to the the discretionary nature of the control. All of that said, we've previously put to Council a proposal which would reduce the length of shadow by circa 500 mil, so half a metre. And that's achieved by adjusting the design detail of the parapet. And again, this is shown in the package, where there's a diagram which looks in section. It's quite a detailed drawing, but looks at how you would reorganise the parapet detail through design. It means we can bring the screening element down, and the length of shadows from what's shown, which we say is acceptable anyway, having regard to the DDO, right? It would mean that the shadow's less. So what we say in terms of a way forward here is first prize for us would be to delete condition 1A. Yep, as I said, first prize would be removal or deletion of that condition, but what I've handed out here is an alternative wording to condition 1A, which would require a reduction in the parapet height and the parapet detail to create or to give effect to a reduction in the shadows. And that's a proposal which our client would accept and would avoid the need for us to go to the tribunal to ensure that we have alignment between our heritage and planning approvals, because that's what we're going to be forced to do. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I've got a question, actually not on this particular issue that you're concerned about, but this is where there's a reference to communal open space and communal courtyards being clear to the sky, receiving natural light, secondary courtyard on level 3 functions as the sole light well to DDA rooms. I assume that means disability accessible rooms to the east of the site. I thought I saw something else in the report saying that all rooms have access to a window. Is that correct for those
Yes.
DDA rooms?
Yeah, all rooms do.
So it's just this light well in terms of the communal space that's where it's no natural light for the DDA compliant rooms.
I've got a larger set of plans here. Could you point to the area in question?
Well, I'm I'm just looking at the point of the report. It's just this point regarding, a light well being lighting the DDA room. So that's what I was just wanting to clarify, that those two rooms had access to external light with a window. That's really all.
I'll just go to the rooms. So we've got a DDA room, a large DDA room on level 3, which has a window to the east, which is to that courtyard space.
Yeah, so it's not a window to the outside, it's just a window to a courtyard space with a light
right.
well. Okay.
No, that courtyard space is open all the way through.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's open to the sky.
Okay, already. Yeah, that's what I wanted to check.
Councillors, could I please have a motion? Sorry, are there any other questions? There are any other questions? And I'll just confirm there are no other speakers. Councillors, could I please have a motion?
Can I ask a question of the planning team prior to moving to a motion?
Yep.
Is that
Yep.
Can I ask, and it may not be able to be answered in detail given this is last minute, but I'm curious, the alternative wording proposed by the applicant, what would be the impact from the planning team's perspective if we were to adopt that amendment instead of the officer's recommendation?
Thank you, Councillor. Through the chair, so the alternative that's been presented by the representative of the applicant seeks to achieve a reduction in the shadow impact by half a metre at the particular time. So it is a reduction on what is currently before council. It doesn't go as far as the officer recommendation before council tonight. If you wanted to have a more detailed explanation of that, we can call on the officers to provide that, but the alternative is 500 less.
I'd like to get a more detailed explanation.
So might ask for Mark Hughes to respond.
Thank you, Mark.
Right. Through the mayor or through the deputy mayor, the condition, which is part 1A of the recommendation, seeks compliance with the requirement in the planning scheme, so that pulls the shadow off the footpath at those times between 10 and 2 at the equinox. The shadow diagrams or alternative put by the permit applicant improves it, but it still doesn't achieve compliance. So the difference is, one, the officer recommendation achieves compliance. This does an improvement, but not compliance with the discretionary control in the planning scheme. Does that help?
Has that answered your question, Councillor Svensson? Any other questions? Councillors, could I please have a councillor to move the motion for the officer's report?
Could we just have a minute to maybe adjourn and discuss it in more detail? Just kind of, I've heard the impacts of the shadowing, but I just want to...
How long are you proposing, councillor?
5 minutes.
5 minutes? Okay, we'll adjourn for 5 minutes and discuss the impacts. Thank you.
Yeah, we should.
Discussion and the clarification that we sought is, councillors, can I call on you? Is the mic working? Yep. No. Oh.
We're just calling back in the live feed.
We're live now. Thank you, everybody, for your patience and the opportunity to have that discussion and to thoroughly consider all those submissions. Councillors, could I please have a motion? Councillor,
I'm going to move the. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation.
do we have a seconder for the officer's recommendation? Sue. Can I?
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to it.
You're happy to speak to that?
Yeah. So thanks for your patience, everybody, and I'll just give a quick rundown of my support of the project in general as well to address some of the concerns from the residents. So I want to thank first Elizabeth for giving the context of this building and the important role that it's played in our history. Unfortunately, in the heritage context, we are not able to take this into account for this permit, so that's a separate issue. And on the merits of this building, it's not about that we don't care about the heritage aspect, it's just about the scope of the decision-making process here. As this is in my ward in the Brunswick Activity Center, and that's designated for significant housing growth, given that we are in a housing crisis, every new construction has been really important to me and to finding the best outcomes for the community. I'll note that this building is currently empty and is not contributing to housing or the local economy at the time. And while I do have a friend who's a volunteer at the Tram Museum in Melbourne, unfortunately it's sad to say it doesn't get enough patronage that she's not actually there very often and it's not open very often. And I really do lament that, that fact, and one of our residents spoke to that as well. I'd like to see more general housing, but I know we do need more student accommodation as well, and this can take some pressure off our housing crisis. As someone who has lived in many types of student accommodation, I don't consider this atypical, and in many situations, student housing is actually at the whim of landlords who don't take care of their properties. And for students, in my experience, I think this would be a really good location and have a relatively high quality of living as far as students go. I do find it really positive that the applicant has agreed to undertake multiple conditions in response to concerns, such as improving bicycle parking. So when you rely on public transit and bike lanes, it's also important to support people to use those services, such as providing those spaces. So it's very positive to see that added. So when it comes to what we've just been discussing as an adjournment, overall I think the officers have done a very good job in compromising with the needs of the community and balancing overshadowing. On one side of Brunswick Road, basically we'll have a permanent shadow, and the other side, we find it important to maintain access to sunlight. And although we're talking about meters of sidewalk, of pavement that would be shaded or unshaded, I think it's really important to have that ability, at least on Brunswick Road, that we have sunlight as a space that you can be in and walk through, especially when the other side, it's pretty much gone to darkness in that respect. So on balance, I do support the officer's recommendations, and I would encourage the applicant to, if that's still unacceptable, work on more compromise. I think that there's been a positive working relationship.
Councillor Iwasaki, can I ask you wind up your arguments?
That's it. That's all I was going to say.
Thank you. Councillor Bolton?
Yeah, I'll speak in support of the application. I'm not quite sure if my reasoning is the same as maybe other councillors' viewpoints. I'm not sure if everyone's viewpoint. But I do feel it is important for the application to be compliant on this point. The Brunswick Structure Plan was adopted as a result of a huge amount of public consultation with a lot of compromises on all sides. And I think access to sunlight and not having, footpaths overshaded in parts of the certain streets, major streets, was an important component of that discussion. I came in on the tail end of that discussion. And so I feel that it is important not to set a precedent of abandoning that. So I definitely do support, the condition that the officers have set for this. I think that is quite important to protect the street from overshadowing, especially as there will be more developments on this street as well. So it is important that we don't set a precedent there. Secondly, I just wanted to make a general comment. I am a bit disappointed that out of 111 student apartments, that there are only 2 which are disability compliant. I mean, it's not just this developer, it's many developers, and it does worry me the amount of dwellings that are built which are not accessible for people, especially now that we've got the way we build units now compared to old style flats means there's even less accessible housing. So that does disappoint me, but it's not only this particular developer. Developer after developer, or in fact, a lot of developers don't even have any DDA compliant rooms at all. So I don't, I think some elements of the design are great. I sort of do feel the amenity for students is not that great in terms of size of the bedrooms and so forth. But I'm happy to vote in favour of the development with the officers' recommendation around the overshadowing.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak to this motion? Well, if there's no further debate, I'll then put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? And I declare that carried. I'll now ask the officer to outline the next steps. Thank you, Aileen.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The Council has decided to issue a Notice of Decision to grant a planning permit for use of the land for student accommodation, buildings and works associated with the construction of a 5-storey addition above the existing heritage building and a reduction in car parking requirements, subject to the conditions contained within the officer's recommendation. Following the issue of the Notice of Decision, both the applicant and all objector parties will receive a copy of the Notice of Decision to grant a planning permit. Objectors will have 28 days to appeal Council's decision at the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. In the event that no appeal is lodged at VCAT, a planning permit will be issued. If a permit is issued, the applicant has 60 days from date of issue of the Notice of Decision to appeal any conditions on the permit.
Thank you, Aileen. Councillors, we've now come to the end of the meeting. I'd like to thank those watching on live streaming for your interest in council matters, and I take this opportunity to wish you all a very good night. I now declare the council meeting closed to the public at 7:31. Thank you.